The office was eerily silent that morning, save for the rhythmic clicking of heels against the polished marble floor. Clara's heart pounded as she walked toward the boardroom, her mind racing with questions but no answers. She had been summoned unexpectedly by Mr. Grayson, the CEO who had taken over just 6 months ago, a man half her age and seemingly allergic to humility. The email had come late last night, curt and impersonal, 9 a.m. sharp in the boardroom. Do not be late. Clara had spent 30 years building this company from the ground up, pouring every ounce of herself into its success. 30 years of early mornings, missed birthdays, and sleepless nights strategizing how to outpace competitors. And now? Now it felt like everything was slipping through her fingers like sand. As she pushed open the heavy glass doors of the boardroom, the scene inside stopped her cold. Mr. Grayson sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 unfamiliar men in dark suits, lawyers, if their stern expressions were anything to go by. His usual smug grin was replaced with something colder, more calculating. Clara's stomach churned as she took a seat across from him, her hands gripping the edge of the chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Thank you for coming, Clara," he began, his voice dripping with false politeness. "I'll get straight to the point. We've decided it's time for you to step down." Her breath hitched. She stared at him, waiting for the punchline, the explanation, something. But there was nothing, just the weight of his words sinking into her chest like an anchor. "Step down," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you talking about?" He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers together. "You've served this company well, but, let's face it, times are changing. Your methods are outdated. You're holding us back." Outdated. The word hit her like a slap. Outdated? After all she'd done? All the sacrifices she'd made? Clara opened her mouth to protest, but before she could speak, one of the lawyers slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents detailing severance terms, and a retirement package designed to look generous on paper but sting when reality set in. "This is ridiculous," Clara said finally, her voice trembling with anger. "I built this company. I know it better than anyone here, including you." Grayson's lips curled into a smirk. "That may be true, but loyalty only goes so far. Besides," he paused, leaning forward slightly, his tone shifting to something almost gleeful. "We can't have someone undermining my authority, can we?" The implication hung heavy in the air. Undermining his authority? Was that what this was really about? Clara's jaw tightened as realization dawned. This wasn't about performance or relevance, it was about power. About fear. He saw her as a threat, a relic of the past that needed to be erased to secure his own future. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, slowly, Clara rose to her feet. Her legs felt shaky, but she forced herself to stand tall. "Fine," she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "If this is how you want to play it, then fine. But don't think this is the end." With that, she turned on her heel and walked out of the boardroom, leaving behind stunned faces and unanswered questions. As the elevator descended to the lobby, Clara gripped the railing, trying to steady herself. Her mind raced with thoughts of betrayal, anger, and disbelief, but beneath it all, a spark of determination began to flicker. By the time Clara stepped outside, the crisp autumn air did little to cool the fire burning within her. She hailed a cab and gave the driver her home address, though she knew sitting still wouldn't help. Not today. Not after what had just happened. When she arrived, she bypassed the couch and headed straight for her study, shutting the door firmly behind her. The room was cluttered but comforting, filled with mementos of her career, photos of team celebrations, awards lining the shelves, sketches of product designs scribbled on napkins during brainstorming sessions. It was a shrine to her life's work, and now it felt like a tombstone. She sank into her desk chair and pulled open the bottom drawer, where she kept a small wooden box. Inside was a collection of letters, notes, and thank you cards from colleagues and clients over the years. Each one carried a memory, a reminder of why she had loved this job so much. Tears pricked her eyes as she flipped through them, each word fueling the growing resolve in her chest. But nostalgia wouldn't fix this. She needed a plan. Clara grabbed a notebook and started jotting down ideas. At first, they were scattered, thoughts of legal action, public statements, even reaching out to old contacts in the industry. But as she wrote, a clearer picture began to emerge. Grayson thought he'd neutralized her, silenced her. What he didn't realize was that Clara wasn't just any executive. She was a strategist, a visionary. And if he wanted a fight, she would give him one. Her phone buzzed on the desk, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a text from Sarah, one of her closest friends and former colleagues. "Are you okay? Heard about what happened. Can I come over?" Clara hesitated before replying. "Yes, please." Within the hour, Sarah arrived, bearing coffee and sympathy. They sat together in the living room, and Clara recounted the events of the day, her voice shaking with emotion. Sarah listened intently, her expression darkening with each detail. "That bastard," Sarah muttered when Clara finished. "He has no idea what he's messing with." Clara managed a weak smile. "Exactly. And I intend to make sure he finds out." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Clara said, leaning forward, "that I'm not going quietly. If Grayson wants to push me out, fine. But he's going to regret it." Over the next few hours, the two women hashed out a rough plan. Sarah suggested starting with damage control, reaching out to key allies within the company to gauge their support. Clara agreed, but insisted they needed to think bigger, bolder, something that would shake Grayson to his core. "What about launching your own venture?" Sarah asked suddenly, her eyes lighting up. "You've got the experience, the network, the vision. Why let him win when you can build something even better?" The idea struck Clara like lightning. For years, she'd toyed with the notion of striking out on her own, but fear and comfort had always held her back. Now, with nothing left to lose, it seemed like the perfect opportunity. "You're right," she said slowly, a thrill of excitement coursing through her veins. "Why should I let him dictate my future? If he thinks I'm done, he's dead wrong." The days that followed were a blur of activity. Clara reached out to trusted former colleagues, many of whom were outraged by Grayson's actions. Some offered moral support, others promised financial backing if she decided to start something new. Encouraged by their enthusiasm, Clara began drafting a business proposal, pouring every ounce of passion and expertise she had into creating something revolutionary. Meanwhile, rumors of her departure spread like wildfire throughout the industry. Journalists called incessantly, eager for a scoop. Clara ignored most of them, knowing that timing was everything. She couldn't afford to tip her hand too soon, not while Grayson still believed he'd won. One afternoon, as she reviewed potential investors for her new venture, her phone rang again. This time, it was Daniel, a young tech entrepreneur she'd mentored years ago. His company had skyrocketed under her guidance, and he owed her a debt of gratitude. "Clara," he said without preamble, "I heard what happened. Let me help." His offer came as both a surprise and a relief. With Daniel's resources and connections, her chances of success skyrocketed. Together, they began assembling a team of talented individuals, many of whom had also grown disillusioned with corporate politics, and laying the groundwork for what would become Clara's greatest challenge yet. As weeks turned into months, Clara found herself energized in a way she hadn't been in years. Gone was the monotony of board meetings and endless bureaucracy. In its place was the thrill of creation, of building something entirely her own. Yet, amidst the excitement, she couldn't shake the lingering sense of unfinished business. Grayson might have thought he'd silenced her, but Clara knew better. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about proving that true leadership wasn't about titles or power plays. It was about vision, integrity, and the courage to take risks. And soon enough, the world would see exactly what she was capable of. Months later, the launch event for Clara's new company was the talk of the town. Held in a sleek downtown venue, it drew a crowd of industry leaders, journalists, and curious onlookers alike. Clara stood at the center of it all, calm and composed, watching as people mingled and marveled at the innovative products displayed around the room. From the corner of her eye, she spotted Grayson entering the space, his expression unreadable. He hadn't expected an invitation, but Clara had made sure he received one anyway. After all, this was personal. As he approached her, his steps faltered briefly before he masked his unease with a practiced smile. "Congratulations, Clara," he said stiffly, extending a hand. "Looks like retirement suited you well." Clara shook his hand, her grip firm and unyielding. "Oh, I'm not retired," she replied, her voice smooth and confident. "Not even close." Grayson's smile wavered, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Good. Let him wonder. Let him worry. Because this was only the beginning. Grayson's forced smile didn't falter entirely, but Clara could see the cracks forming beneath his polished exterior. His eyes darted around the room, taking in the glitz and glamour of her launch event, the sleek displays showcasing cutting-edge technology, the buzz of excitement among attendees, and the glowing media coverage already streaming live on social platforms. It was everything he had feared, proof that Clara wasn't just a relic of the past, she was a force to be reckoned with. Well, Grayson said, attempting to regain control of the conversation, I suppose this is what happens when someone gets restless in retirement. The word retirement dripped with condescension, but Clara met his gaze head-on, unflinching. Restless? She replied coolly, tilting her head as if considering the idea. No, I'd say it's more like clarity. Sometimes you need distance to realize where your true strengths lie, and who truly values them. If Grayson caught the jab, he didn't let it show. Instead, he glanced at one of the product booths nearby, where a group of investors was animatedly discussing the potential applications of Clara's latest innovation, a sustainable energy solution designed to revolutionize small businesses. His jaw tightened slightly before he turned back to her. You've always been good at rallying people, he admitted grudgingly. But don't think for a second that this changes anything. You're still out of my company. Clara chuckled softly, the sound light yet laced with steel. Oh, I know I'm out of your company. That's exactly how I want it. Believe me, Grayson, I have no interest in going back to a place that doesn't appreciate what I bring to the table. What I do care about is showing the world what real leadership looks like. Her words hung in the air between them, sharp and deliberate. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Grayson straightened his tie, his mask of confidence slipping back into place. We'll see how long this lasts, he said dismissively, though there was a flicker of uncertainty in his tone. Without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Clara watched him go, her lips curving into a faint smile. This wasn't about gloating or revenge, not entirely. It was about proving something far greater, that resilience, vision and integrity would always outweigh fear and ego. The next morning, Clara woke early, energized by the whirlwind of the previous night. The launch had exceeded all expectations. Media outlets were calling her comeback bold and inspirational, while industry insiders hailed her new venture as a game-changer. But Clara knew the hard work was just beginning. Launching a business was one thing, sustaining its growth and impact was another. She spent the day in meetings with her newly assembled team, refining strategies and addressing challenges. Each member brought unique skills and perspectives to the table, united by a shared vision of innovation and purpose. Clara couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, not just in herself, but in the collective brilliance they represented. As the afternoon wore on, Sarah stopped by Clara's office, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one down on Clara's desk and sank into the chair across from her. So, Sarah began, sipping her drink, how does it feel? Being the talk of the town. Clara leaned back in her chair, letting out a soft laugh. Honestly? Surreal. I never imagined things would turn out like this when Grayson forced me out. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You mean you didn't plan this whole thing from the start? Clara shook her head, her expression thoughtful. Not really. At first I was angry, hurt, even. I thought my career was over. But then I realized something important. Sometimes, endings can be beginnings in disguise. If Grayson hadn't pushed me out, I might never have taken this leap. Sarah nodded, her gaze warm with admiration. That's what makes you so remarkable, Clara. Most people would have let it break them, but you turned it into fuel. I had to, Clara replied simply. For 30 years, I gave everything I had to that company. I wasn't about to let someone else define my worth, or dictate my future. The 2 women sat in companionable silence for a moment, savoring the quiet victory. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden light through the windows, Sarah's expression grew serious. What happens now? She asked. Grayson isn't going to sit back and watch you succeed. He'll fight back somehow. Clara's smile faded, replaced by a steely determination. He already tried fighting dirty once. Let him try again. We're ready for him. It didn't take long for Grayson to make his move. A week after the launch event, rumors began circulating within the industry. Whisper campaigns painted Clara's new venture as unstable, questioning the feasibility of her innovations and casting doubt on her ability to compete in such a crowded market. Anonymous sources claimed her team lacked experience and cohesion, while others suggested her funding was precarious at best. At first, Clara dismissed the chatter as typical corporate mudslinging. But when several key suppliers suddenly backed out of deals they'd previously committed to, she knew Grayson was behind it. He was using his influence, and likely his connections, to sabotage her efforts. Clara called an emergency meeting with her senior team. They gathered in the conference room, tension thick in the air as they reviewed the latest developments. "This isn't coincidence," Daniel said, slamming a folder onto the table. "Someone's deliberately trying to undermine us." Clara nodded grimly. "And we both know who that someone is." The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. Grayson's tactics were underhanded, yes, but predictable. What mattered now was how they responded. "We can't play his game," Clara said firmly, standing up to address the group. "We won't stoop to his level. Instead, we focus on what sets us apart: transparency, authenticity, and delivering results." Her words resonated with the team, sparking a renewed sense of purpose. Over the following days, they worked tirelessly to counteract Grayson's interference. Clara reached out directly to suppliers, explaining their mission and reassuring them of their commitment to quality and reliability. She also invited journalists to visit their headquarters, giving them an inside look at their operations and dispelling any doubts about their stability. Meanwhile, Daniel spearheaded a digital marketing campaign aimed at highlighting the tangible benefits of their products. Testimonials from early adopters poured in, praising the efficiency and sustainability of Clara's solutions. Within weeks, public perception shifted dramatically. Where skepticism had once lingered, excitement now thrived. But just as momentum seemed to swing in their favor, Grayson struck again, this time with a lawsuit. The legal complaint arrived via courier late one evening, interrupting Clara's review of quarterly projections. Her heart sank as she scanned the document, which accused her of stealing proprietary information from her former company and using it to develop her current products. Anger flared within her, hot and immediate. The allegations were baseless, of course. Her team had developed every aspect of their innovations independently. But the timing couldn't have been worse. A high-profile lawsuit threatened not only their reputation but also their financial stability. Clara called Sarah immediately. "He's trying to bury us," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "This isn't about justice, it's about intimidation." Sarah listened quietly before responding. "Then we fight back, harder than ever. Prove that his accusations are lies. Show the world that he's the one playing dirty." Easier said than done. Legal battles were expensive and time-consuming, and Grayson undoubtedly had deep pockets. Still, Clara refused to back down. With her lawyer's guidance, she prepared a robust defense, gathering evidence to demonstrate the originality of their work. As the case gained traction in the press, public opinion became a battleground. Grayson's company issued statements accusing Clara of unethical behavior, while supporters rallied to her side, praising her integrity and track record. Social media erupted with hashtags like #StandWithClara and #InnovationOverIntimidation, amplifying the message that creativity and perseverance deserved celebration, not suppression. Through it all, Clara remained steadfast. She held press conferences, addressed misconceptions, and continued championing her team's groundbreaking work. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. One crisp autumn morning, months after the lawsuit was filed, Clara stood outside the courthouse, surrounded by reporters and cameras. The trial had been grueling, exposing every vulnerability and testing every ounce of resolve she possessed. But today, the verdict was finally in. Her lawyer emerged from the building, his face unreadable until he reached her side. "We won," he said simply, a triumphant smile breaking across his features. Relief washed over Clara, followed swiftly by elation. Cheers erupted from her supporters gathered nearby, echoing through the streets. For a moment, she allowed herself to bask in the victory, knowing full well that this wasn't just about her, it was about everyone who believed in the power of innovation and integrity. As she stepped up to the podium to address the crowd, her eyes scanned the sea of faces. Among them, she spotted Grayson, lingering at the edge of the chaos. Their gazes locked briefly, and for the first time, she saw something unexpected in his expression, not anger or arrogance but regret. Clara took a deep breath, then began to speak. Today isn't just a win for me, she said, her voice steady and strong. It's a win for anyone who has ever been told they're too old, too outdated, or too irrelevant to make a difference. Because here's the truth, age, titles, and fear don't define us. What defines us is our courage to keep moving forward, even when the odds seem impossible. Her words resonated deeply, drawing applause from the crowd. As she concluded her speech, Clara felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. And Grayson? Well, he slipped away quietly, vanishing into the crowd. As the days turned into weeks following the court's verdict, Clara found herself reflecting on everything that had transpired. The lawsuit had been a grueling battle, but it also became a catalyst for change, not just within her new venture, but across the entire industry. Her company's innovations were gaining traction at an unprecedented rate, fueled by public support and a growing reputation for ethical practices. Media coverage painted Clara as a phoenix rising from the ashes, an emblem of resilience in the face of adversity. But she didn't revel in the attention or see herself as some untouchable icon. Instead, she focused on what truly mattered, building something meaningful, something that could outlast any one person, including herself. One afternoon, while reviewing data projections with Daniel, Sarah walked into the office carrying a stack of documents. She placed them on the table and grinned. "You're not going to believe this," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Clara raised an eyebrow. "What now?" Sarah slid a document toward her. It was a partnership proposal from one of the largest global sustainability organizations. They wanted to collaborate with Clara's company to scale their energy solutions worldwide, citing her leadership and vision as key reasons for their interest. For a moment, Clara simply stared at the paper, her mind racing. This was more than validation, it was proof that her gamble had paid off. Her decision to step away from the corporate world hadn't been the end, it had been the beginning of something far greater. "Well?" Sarah prompted, breaking the silence. "Are you going to say something, or are you just going to sit there looking stunned?" Clara laughed softly, shaking her head. "I think I'm still processing. This is huge." Daniel leaned forward, his expression serious yet hopeful. "It's your call, Clara. Do we take the leap?" She looked at both of them, then down at the proposal again. For all the challenges they'd faced, for every sleepless night and moment of doubt, this was why she'd kept pushing forward. To make a difference. To leave a legacy. "Yes," she said firmly, meeting their gazes. "We take the leap." The partnership announcement sent shockwaves through the industry. Analysts praised Clara's strategic foresight, while environmental advocates hailed the collaboration as a turning point in sustainable innovation. Within months, her company's technology was being implemented in cities around the world, reducing carbon footprints and empowering communities. But perhaps the most satisfying development came when Grayson's company began to falter under the weight of its own missteps. Without Clara's steady hand guiding operations, internal conflicts erupted, and profits plummeted. Rumors swirled about layoffs and restructuring, painting a stark contrast to the thriving success of Clara's enterprise. One evening, as Clara left her office after another long day, she spotted him waiting outside. Grayson stood awkwardly near the curb, his once immaculate suit slightly rumpled, his usual confidence replaced by something resembling humility. He hesitated as she approached, clearly unsure of how to proceed. "Clara," he said finally, his voice quieter than she'd ever heard it. "Can we talk?" She stopped, studying him carefully. Part of her wanted to walk away, to let him stew in the consequences of his actions. But another part, a wiser, more compassionate part, knew that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, it was about moving forward. "What do you want, Grayson?" she asked evenly. He sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I owe you an apology. What I did, it was wrong. I let fear and insecurity cloud my judgment, and I lost sight of what really matters. You didn't deserve that." Clara nodded slowly, acknowledging the sincerity in his words. "No, I didn't. But apologies don't fix everything. Actions do." Grayson swallowed hard, nodding. "I understand. And I'll spend the rest of my career trying to make amends, not just to you, but to everyone I've hurt along the way." There was nothing left to say. Clara gave him a small, measured smile before continuing on her path. As she climbed into her car and drove away, she felt a sense of closure wash over her. Grayson's redemption wasn't hers to grant, it was his journey to undertake. All she could do was focus on her own path. Years later, Clara stood on a stage in front of thousands of people at an international summit on sustainability. Behind her, a massive screen displayed images of thriving communities powered by her company's technology. The crowd erupted into applause as she finished her keynote speech, her voice ringing with passion and conviction. "I learned a valuable lesson during my journey," she told them, her gaze sweeping over the sea of faces. "True strength doesn't come from holding others back, it comes from lifting them up. Innovation isn't about competition, it's about collaboration. And leadership isn't about titles, it's about purpose." As the applause continued, Clara stepped back from the podium, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. She had built something extraordinary, not alone, but with the help of those who believed in her vision. Together, they had proven that resilience, integrity, and courage could overcome even the greatest obstacles. That night, as she sat on her balcony overlooking the city skyline, Clara allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The road had been long and fraught with challenges, but every step had led her here, to a place where her dreams had become reality, and her legacy would endure long after she was gone. And for the first time in years, she felt at peace.